press the bell icon on the YouTube app and never miss another update.
Namaste children. Let us continue with the topic organisms and populations. In our last class we discussed about competition and commensalism. So in this class we will discuss about other two population interactions, that is mutualism and parasitism. Understood? So in 6 types of population interactions, so we discussed predators, predation, competition, then amensalism, commensalism. So in predation, one species is benefited, other one is harmed. Here predator is benefited, prey is harmed or killed. And in competition, both species are harmed, whereas in commensalism, one species is benefited, other species is neither harmed nor benefited. Whereas in amensalism, one species is harmed, other species is neither harmed nor benefited. So in the amensalism, in the presence of Penicillium notatum, staphylococci cannot grow. The fungal product will not allow the growth of staphylococci. So there the staphylococci is harmed, whereas Penicillium notatum is neither harmed nor benefited. In commensalism, cattle egret and grazing cattle, when these birds sit on the cow and it will eat the insects which is exposed by the cow when it stir up the grass. So in that interaction, cow is neither benefited nor harmed, whereas that bird is benefited, egret bird is benefited. So like this we discussed all these 4 interactions. So we will discuss today parasitism. In the parasitism, one species is benefited, other species is harmed. So in the parasitism, one species is benefited. Which one is benefited? Parasite is benefited, whereas host is harmed. Understood? So in the parasitism, once in this type of biological interaction, it is a biological interaction in which one species, that is parasite, is benefited and other species is harmed, that is host. Understood? Parasite is benefited where host is harmed. So here usually the parasites are smaller in size when compared to host. Hosts are larger in size, parasites are smaller in size. Some parasites are host specific. Some parasites are host specific. That means these parasites are able to survive in particular host only. They cannot survive in other host. So during that time we see a co-evolution. During that time we see a co-evolution. What is co-evolution? If the host develops some mechanisms to reject the parasite or to resist the parasite has to develop some modifications to neutralize the effect produced by the host to survive in its particular host. So host ಏನಾದರೂ mechanisms ನ develop ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ for what? To reject this parasite. ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, this parasite to survive in this host, it has to develop some mechanisms to neutralize the effect produced by the host for the survival of parasite in a particular host. During that time we have to see a condition called co-evolution. That means what the changes seen in the host, same changes has to occur in the parasite. So ಎರಡು ಜೊತೆಗೇನೆ ಎವಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಆಗಬೇಕು. In both we have to see the changes at the same time for the survival purpose. That is called co-evolution. And we know that parasites adaptations to survive themselves in a host organism, they have some adaptation, that is parasitic adaptations. So here we see loss of unnecessary sense organs, loss of unnecessary sense organs, development of adhesive organs or suckers to cling on the host. So these adhesive organs helps the parasite to adhere themselves to the host organs to suck the food. So usually in the parasitism, the parasites depend on the host either for shelter or for food. Mainly we consider food or nutrition. Parasites may depend on host either for food or for shelter. Food for or shelter, understood? So mainly now parasite anta tagondaga, so will not consider the reproduction. So in the parasitism we consider food and shelter when they depend on other organisms for the nutrition and shelter, that come under parasitism. In that mainly the nutrition plays a very important role. So when they are not able to find their food and they go in search of host organisms for the food, that comes under parasites, understood? Here in that mechanism they adopt themselves to adjust themselves to the host organisms for what? For the nutrition purpose. In that we see loss of unnecessary sense organs, development. Unnecessary sense organs means no need of taste, no need to recognize the taste. They absorb the digested food from the host organisms. When they absorb digested food from the host organism, there isn't required some sense organs like taste buds. So loss of unnecessary sense organs and development of adhesive or suckers to cling on the host, and loss of digestive system. Then no need of digestive system in the parasites, because these parasites are absorbing nutrition which is already digested by the host organism. Hagagi there is no importance of digestive system in parasites, loss of digestive system, but they show increased reproductive capacity. They have increased reproductive capacity. These are the adaptation seen in the parasites for their survival in the host organism. So 2 marks ಕೇಳಬಹುದು. Name the parasitic adaptation seen in the parasites to adapt themselves in the host organism. So you have to write these 4 points. Then life cycle. When coming to the life cycle of parasites is also complex. It is complex in nature. We already know that when we take life cycle of Plasmodium, it requires 2 hosts to complete its life cycle. Life cycle in parasites is complex. Some requires 1 or 2 intermediate hosts to complete their life cycle. So example, Plasmodium, it is a digenetic parasite. Digenetic means it requires 2 hosts to complete its life cycle. One is human being, another one is female Anopheles mosquito. Next, liver fluke. It's a trematode, belongs to phylum Platyhelminthes. So even this liver fluke is a digenetic organism which requires 2 hosts, that is fish and snail, to complete its life cycle. So the life cycle in parasite is a complex mechanism. In that some may require 1 intermediate host or 2 or more than that intermediate host to complete their life cycle. Understood? And these parasites will harm the host. Understood? Always the parasites, when they depend on the host for the nutrition, so they harm the host and they reduce. Parasites will reduce population of host organisms. Parasites always reduce the population of host organisms by making them physically weak or reducing their reproductive activity, and because these parasites are going to compete for nutrition in host organisms. So in this competition, they make the host organism physically weak and vulnerable to other pathogens that makes the host organisms to come down, and thereby they decreases in their population size. So that is the parasites. Parasites usually decrease the population of host organisms. Understood? So next we will go with the types of parasites. There are usually 3 types of parasites. Para means dependent. So we have 3 types of parasites. Ectoparasites, endoparasite, brood Parasitism. Ectoparasitism, endoparasitism and brood parasitism. Ecto means outside. Here the parasites depend on the outer surface of the host. They all come under ectoparasites. Parasites depends on the outer surface of a host organism. Endoparasites. Endo means inside. Here the parasites will live inside a host organism. They are classified under endoparasites. Here brood parasitism means they depend on host only to lay the eggs. That comes under brood parasitism. We will discuss individually now. So in the ectoparasites, that feeds on the external surface of host. These are organisms which feed on external surface of host. So under ectoparasites we have examples: lice in human beings, so in our head on edge, ತಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ we see ಏನು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, that is lice in human beings on edge, on their edge. And ticks on dogs, also on the cattle, hunne anta heltivi. So ticks on dogs. And other two example is, these two are examples of ectoparasites in animals: lice on head in human beings and ticks on dogs. They are examples for ectoparasites in animals. Whereas in plants we see cuscuta developing on the edge plants. Cuscuta developing on the edge plants. Edge plants means, see, this is, these are plants. So on this we see development of plant called cuscuta. So they are cuscuta plants, and on that we see flowers. Only we see flowers. So these are edge plants, and these, what I am writing in this orange color, it is cuscuta plant having flowers. So in this evolution, the cuscuta will lose chlorophyll and even leaves. Why? Because this cuscuta is directly taking nutrition from the edge plants. So there is no need of leaves. In the leaves chlorophyll is present. So day by day the chlorophyll pigment is lost in the leaves. One day the leaves are also lost because of no function. Yakendre cuscuta is directly taking nutrition from these edge plants. When it is taking nutrition from the edge plants, there is no use of leaves, because no need of photosynthesis, because this is dependent on edge plants for nutrition. So in this type of parasitism, we see the absence of chlorophyll and even the leaves in Cuscuta plant. Understood? This is example for ectoparasite in plants. So ectoparasites are the parasites which depend on external surface of host for nutrition. Understood? Next we'll move with endoparasites. So in ectoparasites, lice on heads of human beings, ticks on dogs, and even some marine fishes on the copepods. These three are examples of ectoparasites in animals. Plants bandaga, Cuscuta growing on edge plants is an example of ectoparasites in plants. Now we'll move with endoparasites. See, endo means inside. Here the parasite will live inside the host organism. Parasite will live inside the host organism. Examples for endoparasites we already discussed in human health and diseases, like Entamoeba histolytica, it is endoparasite present in large intestine of human beings. And roundworm, Ascaris lumbricoides, they are present in small intestine of human beings. The scientific name of roundworm is Ascaris lumbricoides. So these are all examples of endoparasites. Understood? So endoparasites means here the parasites live inside host organism. Even liver fluke, that is also example for endoparasite. Plasmodium is example for endoparasite. So they all come under endoparasites. In this type of parasitism, the parasites will live inside the body of an host, either in the intestine or in the lungs or in the blood. So that comes under endoparasites or endoparasitism. So next we have one more parasitism, that is brood parasitism. So in the brood parasitism, here the parasite dependent on the host only to lay the eggs in the nest of host. So example for this is Cucumis coel and crow. We know that this coel cannot build the nest. Hagaga ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, it will go and lay the eggs in the nest built by crow. The coil will go and lay the eggs which was built by crow. So the crow will incubate the eggs of coil by considering the eggs are crows only. ನನ್ನದೇ ಎಗ್ಗು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕಾಗೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಇನ್ಕ್ಯುಬೇಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. Because the coil cannot build the nest. Here the eggs of coil and the eggs of crow are identical. That means the crow cannot identify it is coil eggs. Ashtu identical ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. So if any changes occurs in the eggs of the crow, if any changes occurs in the eggs of the crow, either in shape, color, same changes has to occur in the eggs of the quail. ಕಾಗೆ ಮೊಟ್ಟೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನು ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಎವಲ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದೇ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ಸು ಎಗ್ಗಲ್ಲಿ ಕೋಗಿಲೆ ಎಗ್ಗಲ್ಲೂ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ದಿಸ್ ವಿಲ್ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಶಿಯೇಟ್, ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಮೈ ಎಗ್ and it is not incubate. So that time, if any changes occurs in the eggs of the crow, the same changes should be occur in the quail's eggs also, so that the crow can incubate the quail's eggs. This is called co-evolution. That is called co-evolution. That co-evolution means, co means jotege. What changes occurs in the eggs of the crow, same changes has to occur in the quail's eggs also. This is called co-evolution. That is seen in quail and crow. This is one example for brood parasitism. Also we can give one more example for brood parasitism, that is ant, eel and snake. Snake cannot build a nest. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಉತ್ತದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದು ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, it is going to lay eggs. So ant, eel and snake also come under brood parasitism. In this type of parasitism, parasites are not dependent on the host for nutrition and shelter. They dependent on the host mainly to lay the eggs. This is about the brood parasitism. Understood? So parasitism is, it is a type of biological interaction. It is a biological interaction where one species is benefited, parasite is benefited, other species is harmed, that is host is going to be harmed. So we have three types of parasitism. Ectoparasitism, here the parasites feed on the external surface of host organism. Endoparasitism, here the parasites are present inside the host organism, either in the liver, kidney, lungs and blood. And in brood parasitism, here the parasites are not dependent on the host for the nutrition, mainly they dependent on the host for the laying of eggs, because they cannot build the nest, so that the host organism will incubate the parasite's egg. That comes under brood parasitism. We left with one more population interaction, that is mutualism. It is a type of symbiosis. It is a type of symbiosis in which both the species are benefited. In which both the species are benefited. It is a type of biological interaction in which both the species are benefited. Understood? So under mutualism we have lichens. Example. So we know that lichens are also pollution indicator. Lichens will not grow in the presence of sulfur dioxide. SO2 ಇರೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ it will not grow. So it also indicates pollution. It acts as a pollution indicator. So pollution ಇರುವಂತ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ lichens will not grow. So we'll talk about mutualism here. Lichens is here we see two components. One is mycobiont, another one is phycobiont. Mycobiont is nothing but fungus. Mycobiont is algae. Here the algae are, they need some substratum for the growth. They need some substratum for the growth. That substratum is provided by fungus. So as fungus are heterotrophic in nature, they cannot produce food. Algae are autotrophic in nature, they are able to produce food. For their growth they need some substratum. That substratum or shelter is provided by fungus. The shelter or substratum is provided by fungus to the algae. In turn, algae will provide food to fungus. Understood? That is type of mutualism. So algae again provide the fungus. Fungus will give substratum. It provides substratum for the growth of algae. So on the fungus we see the development of algae. We see the development of algae. So this algae is autotrophic in nature. So as it produces food, the food will be utilized by the fungus. So like this both are benefited. It is a type of mutualism. Understood? So one more is mycorrhizae. Understood? Mycorrhizae, it is a type of bacteria. Sorry, it is a type of fungus seen in roots of higher plants. So mycorrhizae is seen in roots of higher plants. It is a fungus. So these mycorrhizae which are present in the roots, what they will do? This mycorrhizae will absorb nutrients present in the soil. It absorbs nutrients present in the soil that is useful for this higher plants. That will be used for these higher plants, and these plants again provide photosynthetic products. That means they will provide food to the mycorrhizae. This mycorrhizae helps in the absorption of nutrients from the soil which were present in the roots of higher plants, and these plants what they will do? They in turn give nutrition to this mycorrhizae. Understood? This is another example for mutualism. Lichens, the mycobiont, this fungus, phycobiont is algae. And in mycorrhizae, what is the importance of mycorrhizae? What they will do? They help in the absorption of nutrients from the soil. Absorption of nutrients from the soil. In turn, the plants will provide them food, photosynthetic products which contain carbohydrates. So other examples for this mutualism is rhizobium present in the roots of leguminous plants. Rhizobium present in the roots of leguminous plants. Leguminous plants like peanuts and beans, we see in the roots of leguminous plants, we see the presence of rhizobium. This rhizobium fixes nitrogen in the soil. Fixes nitrogen in the soil, which is very important for the growth of plants. So this rhizobium fixes nitrogen in the soil. That is very important for the growth of plants. In turn, the plants will provide food to the rhizobium. It will provide food to the rhizobium. This is an example for mutualism. Rhizobium present in roots of leguminous plants. And we can see mutualism between plants and animals. That means plant pollinator relationship. So some plants dependent on insects for the pollination. Some plants depend, it's not some plants, many plants are dependent on insects for the pollination. In that, like bees and wasps. So here example in this we have fig tree and wasp insect. These are specific, the fig tree is specific to wasp insect. In the absence of wasp insect, fig inflorescence will not pollinate. It is going, the inflorescence of fig tree is going to be pollinated by wasp insect only. Understood? So these fig tree are specific to wasp insect for their pollination to occur. So this wasp insect will go in search of place to lay the eggs in the fig fruit. So when wasp insect will go in search of place where to lay the eggs in the fig fruit, it is going to move from one place to another. During that period, it is going to pollinate inflorescence of fig tree. It is going to pollinate inflorescence of fig tree. In turn, the fig tree will provide seeds to the developing insects larvae. Understood? So, ಈ wasp insect ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, it is going to lay eggs in a fig fruit. ಸೊ ಯಾವ ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಎಗ್ನ ಲೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಫ್ರೂಟಿಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಫ್ರೂಟು ಅವು ಹೋಗುವಾಗ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಸಿಟ್ ಆನ್ ಒನ್ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಟು ಅನದರ್ ಫ್ಲವರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ. ಡ್ಯೂರಿಂಗ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಪ್ರೋಸೆಸ್ ದ ಪಾಲಿನೇಷನ್ ಈಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಅಕ್ಕರ್. In turn, the fig tree is going to provide seeds to the developing insects. That means larvae of insects larvae. The fig tree will provide seeds to the insect larvae during their development. Understood? Like this, there is a mutualism between these two species. The wasp insect in search of place to lay the eggs, it is going to pollinate the inflorescence of fig tree. In turn, the fig tree will provide seeds to the larvae of insects. Like this, we see the mutualism between these two, and fig tree are specific ಅಂದ್ರೆ wasp insects ಬಿಟ್ಟರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಯಾವ insects ಕೂಡ inflorescence of fig tree ನ pollinate ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. So these fig tree are specific in their partner. They need wasp insect for pollination. This is a type of mutualism. And one more is even honeybees. Honeybees are going to pollinate many flowers when they go in search of nectar from one flower to another flower. They are going to pollinate many flowers. So in this we have sexual deceit or deceit ಅಂತಾನು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. The sexual deceit, one of the is seen between orchid flower and bumblebees. It's in between orchid flower, ophrys and bumblebees. Mediterranean orchids antanu ಹೇಳಿ. Mediterranean orchids. So not all orchids offer this. We see this type of relation, that is mutualism between the orchids and bumblebees. These orchids are plants. So here one of the petal of the orchid flower So one of the petal of orchid flower resembles female. So orchid flower ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ, one of the petal, bumbly bees ಗೂ normal bees ನಾವು ಏನು ಜೇನುಹುಳನ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ, what's the difference between bumbly bees? These are mainly seen in Himalayan regions. Bumbly bees are seen in Himalayan region and in Nagaland. Difference ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, in bumbly bees we cannot differentiate head and thorax. Understood? So jointly ಆಗಿ ಕಾಣುತ್ತೆ, head is fused to the thorax ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ನಮ್ಮ honeybees, what we see the honeybees, we can easily differentiate head and thorax. And on the surface of the body we see more air in bumbly bees when compared to normal bees what we see in Karnataka. And the colors of bumbly bees are usually yellow and black and orange in color. So in these bumbly bees ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, the male bumbly bee will think it is a female honeybee. It's a petal which resembles female honeybee, which resembles female honeybee. The petal which resembles female honeybee. So what this male bumblebee will think? It will think it is a female honeybee and it pseudo copulates with this petal. As this petal is resembling female bumblebee honeybee, the male bumblebee will ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ, ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. It will think it is a female honeybee and it will pseudo copulates with this petal. During this sexual act, the pollens will dust on the surface of male bumblebee or male honeybee, and when it move to other flower, again for pseudo copulation, the pollen is going to transfer from one orchid flower to another orchid flower. In that way bumblebees helps in pollination. That is called sexual decide. ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, the male bumblebee honeybee will think the petal of the orchid which is resembling as female honeybee as a female honeybee and it pseudo copulates with this petal. During this the pollen will dust on the male honeybee and when it move and sit on the other flower, the pollen will transfer to other flower and pollination is going to takes place. So this is nothing but sexual decide. Here again we have to talk about co-evolution. We have to talk about co-evolution. That means whatever the changes that occurs in female honeybee, the same changes has to occur in the petal of the flower also. Otherwise male will not recognize it as a female honeybee. So whatever the changes occurs either in color or in pigmentation, whatever the changes occurs in the female honeybee, the same changes should be seen in the petal of the orchid flower also, so that the male bumblebee honeybee can recognize it as a female honeybee and pseudocopulates. That helps in pollination. So this is about the sexual decide. Understood? So in this co-evolution is very important, otherwise that may result in the extinction of two species which are dependent to each other. So this completes population interactions. Understood? So with this we are going to complete this chapter also, that completes organisms and populations. So in this you have to know each and every examples in population interactions for your competitive exams. One or two questions definitely will come in a competitive exams in the population interactions. Hagagi this population interactions examples are very important. Understood? And also they may ask for 5 marks, what is population interaction, types of population interaction, and explain any 2 types of population interactions with an example. ಆ ಥರನೂ ಕೇಳ್ಬೋದು. Either for 2 marks or 3 marks they may ask individual population interactions also. So read your textbook thoroughly, repeatedly for your exams. Thank you.